My name is Patrick O'Connell, and I found my way back to God at Community about 12 years ago. After my parents divorced when I was 12, we just stopped going to church. There was no spiritual conversation. And like many of us, the teenage years for me were kind of a hard time, rebellious time. Kind of got to this place where Christianity and Jesus was one of many offerings. And that led me to just be very, very agnostic at best, and probably atheist in my worst days. But at some point in life, we all have to come to this place where we have to answer those most important questions. Who we are, is there a God? What's the point of all this? And for me, that was all tied up in this journey through business. So here I am, I'm working with millionaires and billionaires, all great people, but nobody was giving me any of that truth. I wasn't getting any of those answers that I was longing for. And that was scary, dreadful. That was an existential crisis for me. I wasn't paying attention to my kids and their emotional needs. I was being rather demanding and insensitive with my wife. And I knew I was a broken man, but I had no answers. We happened to move into a new neighborhood, and my wife befriended this family, and they were very kind, and they were the family that had the parties in the neighborhood, so we would always go over there, and there'd be lots of music, and it was a lot of fun. And that woman went to Community and eventually asked my wife to go. I'm like, no, we are not going to church. I'm not going to church. We're not going to start this. I was literally hostile to it. I could feel it. My wife eventually went, and she said, I'm just going to go so she stops asking. And my wife came to Community. She had an experience with Jesus that day. It had to do with some issues of forgiveness, some issues of surrender in her own life. And she came home and told me about it. I said, that's great, but I don't want any part of it. I don't want anything to do with it. But I started to see my wife change. And it was in small ways, but very important ways to me. She seemed to be more caring and more patient. There was always this sense in me of jealousy about that. I guess I was always jealous of people who had some sort of a spiritual relationship. They had something that I didn't, but she was starting to have it, and that made me pretty angry. And every once in a while I'd ask my wife a question or two. So what do they do at that church? What are they talking about? And I think what I struggled with was this free gift of grace, this demand that God makes on us to surrender. That there's got to be something that I have to let down my guard. I have to stop doing life with fists up and open-handedly accept this gift of grace from Jesus. And once that clicked, well, then my life changed. Since that first surrender, there have been multiple opportunities for me to continue to surrender to God, and I guess He likes it that way. But that started for me on this leadership pathway and stepping into the leadership development path that we have here at Community. And then that next point of surrender was then as we went to Kansas City and planting all of these new churches. And then the next point of surrender for me was coming back to Chicago to be the director of New Thing. And along all of that journey, the more I surrender to God, it seems to me, the more He can do in my life.